let's move on to how we're going to find a process. Let's figure out how, if you don't have one, and you may also be in a position where you do currently have a process and maybe you're not trusting it as much. Maybe you think you need to change something a little bit. Maybe you want to refine it. So this might be relevant for you as well. And I will get on to if you do have a process and refining it and sometimes the dangers of that. But essentially, if you are sort of trying to wipe the slate clean or you don't even have a process to begin with, where should you start? What should you do? First of all, grab yourself a notepad. I think these are the most valuable things you can have as an athlete, is placing a notepad into your bag so that when good things happen, when bad things happen, indifferent things, someone tells you something that inspires you, whatever it might be, you can write it down and you can have it in your kit bag just at all times. Because if you're in your head, you're dead. And if you don't get it out to the page, you don't make it real. And sometimes we're very forgetful creatures. So if someone tells you something, you're like, that really resonates with me, I love that, you can put it in your notes. Now, I always love writing something down on a piece of paper, and especially if it's your own personal performance, such as your sport, and having that as this sort of Bible almost in your bag, because just the cathartic process of writing it, I feel, makes us remember it rather than putting it in your phone. You can put it in your phone if you want. Feel free to put in your notes, but I just kind of like that feeling of pen on paper, and I think we remind ourselves a little bit more. So grab yourself a notepad, because it's super important for being able to remember those things that you are telling yourself in the moment that you want to remember, that you perhaps will forget because life is busy and things will get in the way. So what should we put in it? How do we create this process? So essentially, again, if you're starting from scratch, go back to, or when you have a good performance, think of what was going on in that performance. What was I telling myself? What was I doing? How was I acting? What were the movements I was doing? Was there something I was visualizing? And I think this is important to remind you at this point is your process going to be self-talk related? Is it visualization? Is it breathing? Is it relaxing? What is it and how's it going to look? That's an important part of, and it could be all of those, remember. You can have different parts of that at different moments. But in a previous episode with Dr. Alexander Ladinjak, where we spoke about self-talk, not everyone needs self-talk. Not everyone is going to need to use words to remind them of actions, to have this, what he called goal-directed self-talk, the actions that you want to take. And it may not be you. It might be a visual. You might be better off visualizing what it is you have to do. So seeing it before it happens, and the best performance for you might be just simply breathing, taking deep breaths, those belly breaths to help relax us in the moment, or some muscle relaxation. That could be a huge part of your routine, your process. So just think about what is it that you have done in the past, what has worked for you, and then start to write that down. And if you haven't really got anywhere to go in the past, look for your next performance. Now, I know a part of the process is going to be about trying to get to a good performance, especially if you're not in good form right now, but it could be in training. It could be when you do one action in training, register that. Register, what did I just do there? What was I looking at? What did I tell myself? What was I focused on? What was I doing? And try to do it again. And then you repeat over and over again. And you might start to get things wrong. There might be parts of it that work, but maybe other parts that didn't feel comfortable. And this is where you start writing it down. You start, okay, when I did this motion, when I said this to myself, when I focused on this was the outcome. Write that down. That could start as the foundation, the very foundational piece to your process. And you also want to think about what skill is associated to what process. What I mean by that is there could be many different processes you have for different skills, but there could also be a very foundational piece for it. So if we think about building a process as building like a pyramid, and we're trying to build the foundational piece here. In my bowling, for example, I have a certain foundational process that gets me from the start of my run up towards the crease. But at the crease, I could be bowling a Yorker, which is at the toes of the batsman. I could be bowling a normal length, which is sort of in the middle of the pitch. I could be bowling a bouncer, which is shorter down the pitch to aim towards the batsman's head. I could be bowling a slower ball, different variations of a slower ball. And within that process of doing all of those different skills, each process will be different. I just didn't execute a certain part, or I did execute a certain part. But the process is built on a bedrock of my run up, of my approach, of my thinking, what I'm visualizing, where I'm focused, all of that. There is a bedrock of that. So if you really are starting from scratch, you don't want to go and try to build a process for the most complex skill that you possibly have. You want to make sure that you're trying to build this for your most fundamental, foundational skill that you have. So if you're a footballer and taking a free kick, you might be, instead of trying to just go for the top corner, you might be just trying to get the ball up over the wall. You may be just trying to get some curl on the ball. What is that part of the process that you're trying to do? I don't know what that may be. I'm not a footballer, but this is just throwing some ideas out there. But the idea is that you're building your foundational part of your process that might underpin all of the other intricate and more advanced skills. So that's a long way around of saying, don't go to the advanced skill first. Focus on building a process for your most basic skills. Hey, if you've enjoyed that video, then you can click right here to watch the full unedited version of that episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel by clicking the button below. I'll see you soon.